I will start the live. Just give me a moment.
Can I start?
Not yet. I'll let you know. Just fixing it.
Yeah. Also, the Zoom will stop in 1 hour. So we started the conversation before 15 minutes or something. So we need to be also, we need to watch that.
Is it applicable for the subscription account as well?
If you have the subscription, then you can set your time.
Yeah, so I didn't set a time limit, so I think they will allow me, no worries.
Yes, then that's perfect. So this will simultaneously go live on the Facebook page.
Yes.
Only on Facebook or also on a YouTube channel or something, or?
No, we are just planning for Facebook now. So I think we're live now and it's already recording. So we can start.
Oh. Yeah. So you first you will talk or like?
Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. This is Tushar from Inclusive Bangladesh. I'm the project director. And today we are going to have a conversation with the renowned intersex activist from South Asia, Gopi Shankar Madurai. And this is because of the celebration of One Day, One Struggle campaign that we celebrate in supporting the sexual and bodily rights as human rights for all the people of the world. And as part of the celebration in Bangladesh with other organizations, our partner organization, Navaprabhat and Shamata Foundation, are also jointly celebrating this program. And you can see this program live on the page of Inclusive Bangladesh and Equal Bangladesh's platform. So without further ado, let's welcome our guest of honor today, Gopi Shankar Madurai. Welcome.
Yeah. Hi, namaste, Tushar and Inclusive Bangladesh, Shamanta and everyone. So thanks for having me here. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. So um, so I'm happy to be part of this initiative. And to start with, so I'm known for the work, on intersex human rights, and especially in South Asian context, in Indian context. So to delve into all those details, before that, I want to, first to start with, intersex is a terminology. It's sex characteristics. It's neither a sexual orientation nor a gender identity nor sexual orientation. So we all know sex as an identity that is by birth, that nobody decides to be born as a male or female. So when like child, cannot be classified, or when an infant cannot be classified with the binary, sex identity, then we kind of uh, call that child or infant is with a kind of a DSD condition. Earlier, it was disorders of sex development, but then like later, intersex human rights activists changed the term as um, differences in sex development. So then now we are using the term intersex. So when we started the movement, there was no the term intersex was not there, and the flag was introduced very late in 2013 by Morgan Carpenter, and like gay, lesbian community or transgender community, intersex people don't have a community for themselves. Of course, not all intersex identities were visible during the birth. There are more than 40 plus intersex variations. At least 3 intersex variations are visible during the birth. An intersex person can have any sex identity, any gender identity, or any gender expression. They may go with any gender expression, sexual orientation, but their sex characteristics is different. Our sex characteristics are different. So, in South Asian context, people often misunderstand that intersex, infants and children as hijras or Kwajisara or Nupi Manbis or like different names they have. Mm, so before the term LGBT, I mean lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and intersex, um, we do existed even before these terms, right? So these are new terminologies in English, and these are new identities evolved from American and European perspectives and the very kind of civil society narratives. So what were the terms we used in Asian context for this people? We used diverse terminologies, but we were not very clear about the difference between the term sex, gender, gender expression, gender identity, sexual orientation, or sex characteristics, because English itself is not even you know 1,500 years old language. It's less than 1,300 years old language. It's a quite new language in this world. So most of the human rights work are centered around the English language now. And for example, in South Asia, we have vast, diversities, and it is not multiplicity, but diversity, which are rooted from this land. We have at least more than, or home of at least more than 1,600 to 2,000 languages. A lot of them are dialects, as well as have unique, you know, um, letters, I mean, alphabets and writing methods and speaking methodologies and etc. etc. The Bengali, which people are speaking in Bangladesh, is bit different from the Bengali which Indians speaking in different parts of Bengal, right? So, like, uh, I speak Tamil, and the Tamil we speak is very different from the Tamil what they speak in, Sri Lanka, the Sri Lankan Tamilians. So, coming back, so we kind of, you know, uh, the identities are something very important. And always the West, the global North, ruled the global South with identities. By selling identities, by commercializing identities, by popularizing identities, by exploiting the identities. Very often, a lot of our identities, narratives are built by, or written by, or documented by the people from the global north or the elitist section of people from the global south, who have a language. If you can understand the language which I'm speaking, English, you are privileged. And I'm privileged in some manner that I can speak this particular language now. But majority of those people who are working in the grassroots cannot speak in this language, which means then there is an issue that the whole lot of the narrative around activism is based on certain English speaking communities, even within the global communities who speak Spanish or French or Chinese, or the predominant language, which is, not language for one country, but multiple countries, like, Portuguese or Spanish. Uh, Even, again, they are falling in line with the, the global, English speaking audience, where they decide, determine, and define what is LGBTQIA activism. And one such movement they try to define is intersex human rights movement. The growing economy around the LGBTI movement and the money what they are spending on it, it's vast in the recent days. Like, because when we started it, we are not paid salary by anybody. We are a volunteer movement. We are the longest floating volunteer movement in India, who are existing for nearly 11 plus years now. And we didn't started it with a strategy or a passion or all that. So there was no politics, in it, because we represented the grassroots realities. And those days, you know, a lot of materials were not even available in regional languages. Those days, matlab, not, BC and AD. I mean, just, like in 2010, 11, 12, 13 till 14 too. I mean, we have at least 29 recognized languages in India. Apart from that, India is home to more than 1,200 plus languages. And how many regional literatures we have, regional terminologies we have, or resources we have on the LGBTI, especially, uh, um, matters related to the bodily rights, or bodily integrity of a human being, especially the SOGI SC rights, in the regional context is very less. So we started publishing regional resources in Tamil language first, and then, slowly in other South Indian languages. Um, we also helped, assisted Intersex Asia to translate the UN statements in, some of the Asian languages, Indian languages. So coming back to intersex human rights, intersex is one such identity, and it is a very important identity, one important aspect of my life, but that is not all about my life, right? So in one of this identity, we started talking about this identity mainly, uh, because at least three conditions are visible during the birth of a child. In these three conditions, medical conditions, you cannot kind of assign a proper sex to a child. So we were like, okay, we are them, and we are one of them. And what if the baby is healthy, and the baby is healthy, but the doctor couldn't kind of assign a sex to the baby? And on what basis the doctor is operating the child cosmetically to make the child to look like, you know a male or a female, body, by disputing their bodily integrity, which is completely against the dharma of the land, you know uh, so of course it is against the constitution of India too. But the way the people are interpreting the constitution matters a lot. So just because a person is from the LGBTI community doesn't mean that the person know everything about the community, including Gopi Shankar or anybody, right? So, and also the same applies with the doctors community, the judges, the lawmakers or the policymakers, everyone, because there was a kind of ignorance with the medical community. The whole, this surgical methodology originated from US. It spreaded like a virus in, around the globe. And 10 in 2 doctors in US, if you see, they are Indians, of course, and they practice this. So coming back, to back home in India, we have, not like US, we have a common, medical care, world largest medical care system, called Ayushman Bharat, and various state-run insurance schemes, etc., etc. Uh, 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 you know, some of them were also kind of sponsoring unknowingly because of ignorance, sponsoring intersex, selective surgeries or corrective surgeries or whatever they call it. This is a human rights violation. So we thought of raising it. And um, when we started the whole narrative, even interpreting 377 penal code, law, the law which inspired by the theological perspectives of the church, which was amended in every single Commonwealth nations under the Victorian times. Um, we see the very kind of uh, you know uh, horrible things which took place during the colonization. I mean, every single colonization which took place in the geographical locations which we refer as present and past India, um, it is bit horrible. What the British has done to us, what the others from the Europe have done to us. Um, Going back before 600 years, we didn't had America, right? America behaves like they are the mother of human rights now. And on the other hand, we have China, and which is a stupidity. Communism killed at least 13 crore people. Even now, Dalai Lama is living as a refugee in India. And you see a lot of minority communities like Jewish or Parsi communities, Zoroastrians. They live in India. They lead, India in different positions they are in. And we represent a huge diversity. And this diverse community do have marginalized, sections belonging to diverse Sogi communities. These Sogi communities in early 2010 were not very much together or okay with using the term LGBT. So when 377 was filed, it was more like a HIV targeted intervention program. NAS couldn't get, the NAS Foundation couldn't get the data of those people or men who are MSM men, right? So they needed data, and this particular law was a kind of obstacle or a hindrance. So they filed a petition in early 2003. Along, even before them, we have another Delhi-based organization which filed. NAS joined them, and only after 2011 and 12, the term LGBT becomes so popular in the mainstream Indian media. And regional medias were using very decent terminologies or reporting the issue in a more ethical manner, in a community affirming manner, only for past 3 to 4 years in India. Uh, So it took a lot of, even before the Nalsa judgment, which recognized transgender people as third gender. I mean, I don't agree with term third gender. Definitely, male is not the first, man is not the first gender, or woman is not the second gender. So judgment do have a lot of flaws, which represented by a predominant Hindi speaking as well as some part of non-Tamil speaking South Indian communities, because the transgender rights movement, or the gender rights movement which evolved in Tamil Nadu, it is something historic. Because when you see the whole, from getting voter rights for transgender people to, representing different cases in the court, to, forming the first ever transgender welfare board as part of the Ministry of Social Justice, state ministry. Tamil Nadu pioneered a lot of, laws and policies, um, uh, and several activists have laid their life. They didn't got any funding at those days, to do all this. So in early 2012, we didn't got any funding to, protest against the name change rules and regulations, or, when we protested against the past government, um, to allow transgender people or gender non-conforming people in civil service examination in 2013, we challenged it in the High Court of, Madras. And then my friend Swapna, who was born as a Muslim but living as with a Hindu identity, um, become the first trans gazetted officer, who is the first ever openly trans woman to appear for a civil service examination here. Um, and the personal struggle continues. And none of our personal struggles were affirmed by or assisted by the big giant NGOs of India. Simply filing a public litigation in the Supreme Court or in the High Court, without doing any groundwork, without knowing the grassroots realities, is a stupidity, basically. And those people who are calling me, those people who are calling me, I'm highly, religious, or like I'm highly communist centric. The constructive work we done with the community, these people are armchair lipstick activists who go with Maoist communist narratives. They love the Chinese narratives of oppressing, and killing millions of Buddhists, or, they never opened their mouth when Tamil genocide took place, in Sri Lanka. So,
Sorry to interrupt.
The issues are highly intersectional. And coming back to the rights discourse, of the movement here in Tamil Nadu.
Sorry, I have a question, because you talked about your language barriers when you started activism, and there were also the historical problems that the British government or British ruled monarchies introduced, and then you shifted to the local NGOs who used to work with the marginalized community, and also the different narratives that are emerging with the political tags. So we'll talk about one by one. But just because you started with the language, I have a very interesting question. I mean, I am very curious when you talk about language, because language is one of such a barrier in activism, and especially for our community. We had a project named Sexual Diversity Related Terms in Bangla, because the Bangla is a language which actually derived from many different languages, and we also have some borrowed words. So when we talk about gender identity and expression, or anything of a different gender spectrum, we see many different terminologies that are existed in English or in other languages, as you said, that the narrative is built by the Western societies, and we find that we do not have equivalent Bangla language in our dictionary. So when we try to make sure that other people know about this terminology, we found like we don't have enough resources. So we came up this with the project that we translated those words that are not available in our language, and we try to distribute them to the local grassroots level youth workers. Now, when you talk about intersex, we have one equivalent Bangla word for that. We call it antolingo. As a student of language, I feel like it's a very literal translation, which is not actually fits into the normal language discourse. So I feel like this word is a bit problematic and cannot express the whole idea of intersex. So do you think in Tamil or in any other languages in India, you have or you do not have the equivalent meaning of intersex? What do you think about it?
See, one of the major issues is that we are not etymologists or neither, linguists. But my field of study was I did study the etymology, but we kind of requested concerned scholars and authorities to come on board in the American College in Madurai, Madurai Conrad University, where we introduced India's first gay literature, transgender literature as part of curriculum, and intersex human rights studies as part of curriculum in Madurai. So here, the community members as well as the others they came up with their own, notions, and then we did a lot of brainstorming, and then like, what is affirming term, we went by that. We so this term should be affirmative, and for example, we have Dravidian dialects, which is lingual dialects, and more Indic dialects, which are more Sanskritized and Sanskrit dialects. Hindi is not a closest language to Sanskrit. One of the closest language to Sanskrit, some of the closest language to Sanskrit are Marathi, Bengali, Maithili, and in majority of these languages, we see the literal translation for intersex people are Antarlingvashis or Antarlingis. And it is the same term they are using in Nepal too. And sometimes we may feel certain terms bit uncomfortable, like but for example, redefining the term bitch, it evolved as a movement, whereas the term antarling do have certain cultural history, notions. For example, even before the term LGBT, we have gender specific rituals and cultures and spaces dedicated to diverse OGSC communities in different South Asian regions, right? Uh, in the past and present geographical locations or the boundaries, what we refer as India, we have different types of communities, right? Be it Pakistan or the down south of Tamil Nadu or Bangladesh or the northeastern part of India to you know uh, going to Burma. A lot of these traditions did influenced, they have their influence from certain traditional lingual social stratifications of the mainland Indian or the Hindu system, and the impact of that is vast. So when we want to redefine certain terminologies, we need to be very sure that we are not offending those hidden cultural histories of these terminologies. So some of the terminologies we kind of I coined in Tamil, irrespective of the politics, people from different political spectrum are using this terminology. I'm not kind of going with the board in my neck saying that, oh, I coined it, I didn't coin it. It's not that they should credit me or something. We need, the point is we need more affirmative, sensible language, or affirmative, sensible terminology, which will create a very sensitive language, which will accommodate, our struggles, trauma, and stories and narratives in a more dignified manner, in a more constructive manner. That matters a lot, right? So that is one thing about the terminology. But going back to the place where I left, about the activism, one of the key issues we focused on is that, you know that intersex athletes with athletes with intersex traits, female athletes with intersex traits. Our work, we were one of the very first LGBTI groups to openly advocate against the discrimination of female athletes with intersex traits. Be it Pinky Pramanik from West Bengal, or Tudi Chand from Odisha, or Shanti Soundarajan's case, whom we represented in different statutory bodies in India. What we understood is that the mainstream, the male dominated or gay dominated or a particular identity dominated or a particular feminist group dominated LGBT groups, initially in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, they were not interested in all these narratives or the stories. Now they are trying to dominate or kind of patronize these narratives by, like, oh, we really worked for them. But when they were struggling, these athletes were struggling, they didn't do anything. So, for example, in Congress regime, and also, I want to tell about this thing, in India or in many Asian contexts, we cannot, define the government as left wing and right wing, because homogenizing the politics of Asia as left wing or right wing is highly problematic, because the left of Asia, especially in China, is highly problematic. And the left of Asia, in Asia, in many Southeast Asian countries, is horrible. It led to genocides. So, for example, if the BJP is the right wing, the Congress party was not the left wing. What the Congress was doing for past 60 years when they were ruling the India, did they passed or changed any laws to affirm the LGBT human rights? No. What the communist, West Bengal, which killed, a lot of Marichabi people, where the Marichabi massacre took place in Sundarban forests, what they did for the LGBT community in the past years is nothing. Did they decriminalize, even without Supreme Court intervention, in India, each state have an autonomy to decriminalize homosexuality or pass, laws on same-sex marriage or amendments. Both BJP and Congress or communists, all are ignorant. But the thing is that we are living in a very democratic country where a Muslim can become a president of India. And as well as, our temples are taxed and temples are under the government, whereas churches are not taxed or mosques are not taxed in India. And they get a lot of subsidies from the government. And we have even the second highest number of educational institutions in India is owned by the Christian church. And when we approach these church-based institutions for educating LGBTI issues, very recently they came down, especially Protestant church. Before, they were like quite orthodox, Thank God we don't have a central authority like, the church or a mosque, where a particular imam or a particular, pope controls this particular community. Nobody controls Hindu community, right? We don't have a particular book. We don't have a particular authority. We don't have a single God, right? So we are vast. Coming back to the issue, to put all this in place when we are doing our activism, it is bit, very, very problematic, because in India, each region have a different problem. Going back to the issue of, intersex athletes, in Congress era, who behave that, like they really bother, they really, work for Dalit rights or something. Read about Ambedkar, what Ambedkar wrote about, Congress and Kashmir and Pakistan and Muslims and Christians, you will, hate Ambedkar then.
Okay.
Ambedkar is a wonderful leader. So going back to what happened in Congress tenure for Shanti Soundararajan, she was kept nude for more than 6 hours in the name of sex verification test in Doha Asian Games. In Asian Games in Doha, this incident took place. Who raised their voice against Shanti? Which LGBT group raised their voice against Shanti? Shanti herself didn't know what happened to her. Shanti herself was not aware of, because she couldn't speak in English. She can only speak in Tamil. You know, you cannot expect a rural Bangladeshi athlete, an elite athlete, to speak in English, right? They can only speak in Bengali. And this athlete is back in Doha in 2006. She was banned from competing in sport. She worked in a Brooklyn as a daily wage for less than, $1 to $2 per day. We took up her case in 2013. Which organization which is pointing their fingers on us, which is, doing commercializing people's identity, including Dalit identities, to sell Dalits, who are pointing their fingers on me? Did they stood by those people who struggled? No. The first thing is that. Did we got any funding to represent Shanti's case? No. What Shanti is doing, what Shanti got back is that she's leading a very dignified life now, peaceful life. I mean, all those trauma struggles, I don't know, how much we can support or assist her, but all we did assured is that she can get, she must get a, permanent government job within the government body as an athletic coach to train, other fellow girls like her. So we made it, possible. And also we represented, we also wrote to Sarbananda Sonowal to support Tudicha. One of my friend who is not, our ideologies are different, Payoshini Mehta, with support of Katrina Karkasis from US. These two people, wonderful people, represented Tudichan's case in Court of Arbitration for Sports, because of which Rio Olympics became the first Olympics which took place without sex verification test. And for this, Tudichan's case, the government of India, the BJP government, the Modi-led government sponsored Tudichan's case. Sarbananda Sonowal sponsored Tudichan's case. They may say he didn't agree or he may not agree, but at the end of the day, they gave money and they allowed Tudichan. See, the same thing when it happened for Shanti in 2006, nobody stood by Shanti. The same thing when it happened to Tudi. Of course, it is not just about the government change, it's also about the social media. When the same thing happened to Shanti, social media or internet was not that popular, internet was like a privilege for each one of us. Even as it is not a privilege, like we can get internet very cheap in India. So there are a lot of aspects. These are small incidents I highlighted. For example, when we started, we understood that there are a lot of non-English speaking communities, because majority of the meetings only took place in, like, Delhi or Chennai or Kolkata, or like even in Bangladesh, some of the meetings will only take place in Dhaka, right? What about 3-tier or 4-tier cities? Nothing takes place there. So we thought of like having a 24/7 helpline. We gave our own phone numbers, because we have at least 4 to 5 languages in Karnataka apart from Kannada: Tulu, Konkani, Beri, different languages. In Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, we have Telugu and different indigenous languages. And in Kerala, we have at least 3 to 4 languages. In Tamil Nadu, we have at least 4 languages. And we also try to cover the regions like Andaman, and the Tamil speaking diaspora also got close to us. So way back in 2011 or 12, we were the only support system over phone who were available for 24 into 7 for gender queer, gender non-conforming, intersex people. So that's why in 2019, the Madras High Court took it in, consign, they quoted our work in the judgment. Um, you know, we launched a petition in 2016 that the sex selective surgeries on intersex infants should be banned. And this particular discourse, uh, emerged. And then slowly in 2019, the surgery was banned in Tamil Nadu, but it was generally banned. Any other states can use it as a precedent and enact a law or legislation based on this particular judgment. I
Just
drafted the
to
petition.
interfere, when you talk about this intersex surgery and the bill that introduced by your government to ban this intersex surgery, we frequently see, especially in Bangladesh, that many doctors even they do not have basic knowledge of intersex, and whenever any newborn baby are born as an intersex, they actually proactively sometimes suggest those parents to have the surgery. So I'm not sure how you started, or this process or the advocacy started in India to ban intersex surgery, and how long it took. If you want, you can highlight how long it took and what was the challenges that you faced to advocate for this.
Yeah, it's a very important question, I think, because see, without any monetary support, we invested our own money and we created regional literatures and resources, pamphlets, a kind of training module in Tamil. So then, we targeted lawmakers, policymakers, politicians, school children, street vendors, you know, we bought in different aspects we got the theater artists on table, we got cinema celebrities on table, we offered special lectures and courses for Tamil journalists here. Tamil Nadu is with more than 8 million population, so it is bigger than many European countries, size wise as well as population wise. Um, so it took us more than a decade, it was not an easy deal. And we didn't file any bill, but we lost because we didn't have money to go to court. So we kind of raised this issue with the National Human Rights Commission, which is like a statutory body which have the right or an authority over to question the government of India. So this petition was launched way back in 2013, which only after 2016 continuous petitioning responded to us. So the National Human Rights Commission wrote to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare of Government of India. Listen, we got a complaint, we got a petition saying that human rights of newborn infants with intersex rights or conditions are violated. Are you operating them? If you're operating them, on what basis you're operating them? How scientific is this? So these were the questions raised by the Human Rights Commission to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Deputy Director General of the Health Department, responded to us saying that yes, we are performing the surgery with the consent of the patient or the guardian or the parent of the child. But how the patient can give consent, how a child can give consent? Even parents can give only assent, not consent. So we kind of worked on it to get some numbers, but then like we didn't had much funding. So that was the time I got inside, ILGA, and I got elected. My friend, a hiker, Chiu, who is a renowned intersex activist from Taiwan, introduced me to ILGA, and like not just her, a lot of people, Tony Griffa, Australian intersex politician, public office bearer. So these are people, and as well as my friend Hida Villoria from US. So they were very supportive of me, when I started all this. They guided me, you just go to ILGA and you will get some support. I become a board member and intersex representative for ILGA in 2017, and I got re-elected in 2019 again. I thank all the civil societies in Asia for doing that, supporting me and voting for me. And then, I become a founding member for Intersex Asia, which was actually started by Hiker and Isan and Jeff, Gahandagan, who is the first intersex Filipino to change his name, in Philippines, or Eason, who was the first intersex person to have documents as, other or as an intersex person. So all of us worked together. I mean, they supported me, and we got some financial support to lobby, and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Netherlands, through COC, supported us, to organize policy briefing meeting, and through ILGA, we kind of got some financial support to organize different awareness programs. At the end of the day, we distributed our work in Tamil to different regions. Now, even in Singapore, Singapore's official language, when you see not just English, but also Tamil and Chinese, and Tamil is one of the language there in Singapore. And Singapore's public library, most of the public library, have our Tamil book and work in their public libraries. This is the first ever LGBTI document they kept in a public sphere, in a country like Singapore, which haven't even, decriminalized homosexuality yet. But they have it now. And in Sri Lanka, a lot of Tamil departments in different Sri Lankan universities have our work. We, with the financial support, we printed it a lot, and we just, kind of set it to all of them. And um, so we we created dialogue. We kind of initiated dialogue. We initiated dialogue in different spectrums. That was one of the reason for the ban, and not just for the ban. After the ban, implementing it in a very practical manner, because policies, if it is not practical, right, it is merely a paper, right? It is not going to be useful for anyone. So with the support of ILGA, I went to Hiker. I went to, with the support of Hiker and ILGA, I went to policy training program, where I learned about the administrative structure of my country, how to change policy, how to lobby for a policy, how to understand the governance, how each state have a different governance systems and autonomy. So all this is important for an activist. Without knowing or understanding this, we cannot bring change to the communities we are serving for, right?
Gopi,
So
I think,
that is one of the key aspect.
I think
And
yes. I think you mentioned, when you mentioned your engagement
yeah.
with different organizations like ILGA or Intersex Asia. So I was very curious to know if there is, I mean, as we are talking about one day, one struggle, and the struggle that you face in enjoying your rights. And we know that many people, many organizations are working towards the development of the community. So I want to particularly highlight your work that you have done as part of the ILGA or Intersex Asia. So is there any um, Okay, sorry, we are just um, Gopi, are you still here? Sorry, viewers, we're just waiting for Gopi to reconnect.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Gopi is back.
Sorry, the call got disconnected. It's more than an hour, it seems, right?
It's
It's
fine.
nearly an hour.
Everything over technology, so technological problem is will be there, and we have to move on with that one. So as I was saying, I want to highlight your work as part of the ILGA and Intersex Asia. So is there anything remarkable that you or your team has been done, maybe a specific project that you can highlight that has that is quite interesting, maybe for the wider audience, or maybe you can also highlight the problems or obstacles that you have faced to implement that sort of projects.
Um, I can highlight two important projects. One is like engaging with the interfaith community. We were the first group of LGBT, student volunteers who engaged with the, different faith communities early in 2012-11 with the National Council of Churches in India, with the Protestant churches. Through them, I also went to Myanmar. Where I also, educate the Church of Pakistan, the Protestant Church, and the Church of Myanmar, the Protestant Church in Myanmar, and the churches in Philippines, as well as the churches, Church of South India and Church of North India, which include the churches, Protestant churches from the Sri Lankan, region. So apart from Christian communities, we also try to engage with certain Catholic communities like Shanstart and different, seminaries to educate the, those students who are studying, theology, not just in the Protestant as well, but also in the Catholic denominations. We also engaged with different Islamic faith communities in Tamil Nadu, um, and as well as in some parts of Kerala. But we couldn't reach the religious leaders, or like some of them were a bit orthodox, so we had some issues. So apart from that, we engaged with different groups, especially with the Tibetan Buddhists and different faith groups to build a constructive narrative on Sogiasi rights. So the second issue is that, like the helpline, as well as, you know, uh, our training programs for bureaucrats and policymakers and school children. That's something very, very important. um, so if for example, if you want to do something for the intersex people of Bangladesh, first thing you can do is that you need to check, whether you have an existing mechanism to take care of those abandoned child who, whom the parents don't want to take care of, you know and in India, we do have a system called Kara system, which is under the Union Government of India. It's an adoption agency, a central adoption agency, where parents who don't have a child can adopt a abandoned child who was legally left in the system. So like, because in India before a decade we had a lot of female infanticide issues, and like female infanticide in South Asian region, intersex infanticide is also a major issue. So, if you can check whether such a system is available within the government to protect those abandoned childs, how they are assigning the sex of the abandoned child. You need the infants. You need to look at it. And the third thing you can see is that if they have a section for a male child and a female child, where they are, kind of sending this intersex infants and children in that system. Even when you see there are a lot of Rohingya camps, if you go there, you get to, a lot at least, per month, a lot of newborn infants or arriving in the camps, right? In the boy. So it is not just for the Bangladeshi, but also for those refugees in Bangladesh, you can also focus, which will be more intersectional then. So, and the third thing is that if you don't have a mechanism to protect these children under the Bangladeshi constitution, you can challenge it in the court, you know. So if you don't have a mechanism, for example, um, how the sex of the infant is assigned, if they are undergoing certain surgeries, do they have a centralized approved medical protocol from the Bangladeshi Medical Council? First of all, you need to get to someone who will listen to you in the central council, council, who will help you. Writing to them, write to them for 3 4 times, they may not respond, but when you continuously you know uh, uh, indefinitely, at least, because they will respond, because these are like these bodies like central council, medical council, or authorities, they often change, right, for every 3 years to 2 years to 3 years in Asian region, in different parts of Asia. So our concern is about uh, the life and the body integrity of the newborn intersex infant, and the child should not be disputed, and it should be protected and affirmed, and they should have the space for themselves. So if you need a kind of if anybody want any assistance, with their approach, to the government, especially to work with policymakers, we would love to assist those activists from Bangladesh. Yeah.
Gopi, thank you so much. We're just having 5 minutes left, but I want to highlight at the end. I want to highlight one key message that you have, as we know that you have been doing your activity and activism for many days, and you also faced struggle. So I know it is sometimes very challenging for us as a human being to carry all these obstacles when we are focusing into doing things. So, what will be your key messages for the grassroots level activists, not only in Bangladesh, but especially in South Asia, who actually face problems for various reasons? It can be hardline engagement, or maybe for the society, or maybe the political barrier. So, what can be your message for them so that they can get inspired and also start their grassroots level work with pride, with dignity, and with courage?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like delivering such messages usually, and I don't believe in messages too. Uh, be lively, be truthful to what you are, and as well as, don't fall to the Eurocentric approach or Eurocentric way of activism or the Western way of activism. Your country, people, a lot of political leaders in your country may be biased, or certain policymakers may be biased, certain lawmakers may be biased. It is not that every single person in your country is like that. So always, we need to deal with people's heart than any other identities. We have expandable list of identities around us, right? But we should not allow any identities to homogenize us, for example, so that's why I'm always, I'd never go with one narrator, one book, one god, one a centralized system. I'm completely not okay with that. And our activism should be compassion based. When we want to bring change in the community, it cannot happen with aggression. Even using the term against, you know, is something problematic, because never bring any negative notions into the activism, because that is highly problematic. Of course, a lot of people may not accept bitter histories, in the South Asian context. uh, Before, 600 years or 700 years, Islamic invasion, a lot of things went wrong during the invasion. It doesn't mean that all Muslims are bad, or like rest of the community. But there are a lot of, when we are talking something in Asian context, religion or faith plays a vital role, because the people of this particular region never had a single book or single god before they were colonized, right? So they were very independent. They followed a natural order than a kind of a structured order, right? So when we are talking about or activism or the struggles of those people or ourselves from this particular region, we need to look at the diverse perspective, and we should never allow people to homogenize the whole community and commercialize our identities. Our miseries and sorrows and struggle should not be a political tool for some other vested interests. That's what I want to say. So when, even if you don't agree with what I am saying, there is an approach, there is a way to say that, right? So your approach if should be compassion based, because you're talking about equality, you're talking about sexism, you're talking about stereotype, and you cannot be so stereotypical, you cannot label people blatantly, you know so we live in the world where we love to sell identities and exploit identities, and thrive in identities. Let we try to be identityless. We are trying to be queer, strange, because we are trying to break all those identities, I believe. And thank you for Inclusive Bangladesh and every single organization for providing me this platform. And namaste and jai. Namaste.
Gopi, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure and our honor to have you with us. And as through your conversation, we get to know lots of things that an intersex person face in enjoying their human rights day to day, no matter whether it is from educational, it is from linguistics perspective, it is from political, or it is from different ideology. So I think this conversation will remain as a memory of our one day, one struggle celebration this year. And we look forward to hear from you in our upcoming events. And those who are watching us, thank you so much for watching us. And if you want to know more about One Day One Struggle 2020, you keep watching our Facebook page and Twitter, and our partner organizations from Equal Partnership Platform, Navaprabhat and Shamata Foundation's page to get more update on this event. So thank you so much. Thank you, Gopi. I hope to.
Thank you. Thank you. I also want to say that my spiritual guru is from Dhaka. He's no more, but he was born in Dhaka, but lived in India. So I have also connections to, Bangladesh. And so
This is
it's so nice to have,
and
talk
we'll
to
have
all of you.
connection with each other. And we believe that at Inclusive Bangladesh, we actually believe that we are very interconnected, though we might have different ideologies, but we have to give the platform for the dialogue. So I think it's time for all of us to share the dialogue platform and construct our narrative so that we can collectively build our society and our community. So with that hope, I think we should leave now as 1 hour is over. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thank you. Namaste.